Swag.
I kind of touched on this with Nate a little bit, but with the youngest team, assuming you've had, and I'm pretty sure it's youngest team in the Big 12 Conference, facing a veteran team, at least grade-wise, as is Oklahoma State. How do you win?
Well, I think in all honesty, the last 2 weeks have been the same story, right? I mean, you've played two of the oldest teams in college football. And, what I think you've witnessed, at least from a positive, and I know we haven't gotten the result, you've seen great growth. And, I think that's, at the end of the day, we're looking at obviously the growth to get the response that we want. And so, you can't just sit there and pound away at the lack of result. You have to see where are you doing well, where are these areas that we got to grow. We talked about some of those after the football game, and then you got to demand that it happens. And so, I think that the great thing is there's such a positive result of, man, this building, who we are, what our coaching staff is. We've been in this situation before, and you got to work to grow forward. So it's a great challenge. It's not easy, but the reality is what we have in our walls is enough. And at some point, as long as you continue to pound away at the process to get the end result, positive things are going to happen for this football team.
What is there? You were, I don't know what the word I want to use, as forthcoming after Saturday's game as you were in a long time, maybe since at Kent State.
Mm-hmm.
Really went off
Mm-hmm.
after a victory. But how does that translate then to the players? I mean, do you think the players know you weren't happy, or you let them know also?
Well, and it's a fine line, right? Because I think there is, what this team is lacking is the confidence and in some parts of this football team, the earned confidence of playing well in football games. And this is the balance of being a great teacher and yet having honest conversation. And, listen, none of us are perfect. And, I think the reality of it is this is the time to be a great teacher. And myself, our coaching staff, the leadership on our football team, we've got to continue to teach ourselves forward. So I think the one thing our kids would always say is, I'm going to be bluntly honest, and try to also, point out here's where the gap is, and we got to fill the gap. And as coaches and players, it's our responsibility to respond. So, like I said, I think the thing that I really do appreciate, we've got great kids that really want to. You see it in how they play. We just got to have our fundamental and detail have to be better in the moment to make some of the plays that we're not making right now.
What is that bluntly honest assessment of where you guys are offensively after Saturday?
Well, yeah, I think I talked a little bit about it after the game. We've got to be able to, have consistency in the running game. We have to find a sense of consistency. And, I think probably felt a lot better after the first two games than we felt like after, what we played like on Saturday. And so, I again, that word consistency, it's not, man, have you seen it? You just haven't seen it consistently enough to win football games right now. When you look at the offensive side of the football, I think the positive is you saw Rocco grow. The interception stinks because Jaden Higgins falls on the ground, and that's either a big play or a touchdown, and next thing you know, it's a turnover, and that's costly in the football game. But other than that, you thought there was gutty performance by him. You saw him continue to lead our football team. I think those are real positives. There are enough guys that you see continue to grow forward that are young football players. So, the consistency, and it's no different on special teams. I mean, you're literally a whisker away from blocking two punts in the football game. Did you or did you not make two field goals? You had a chance on the kick return game. And to me, that's kind of where we're living right now. And that's a hard place to live because, the difference of winning the inch and losing the inch is football. And I know that's cliche in the old coach speak, but that's also a reality. And, I think that's why there's not panic because you see, there's a lot of real positive. But at the end of the day, we got to do it. And, the only way I know how to do it is practice and continuing to find the right guys that can do it for us.
When it comes to the offense, and I guess specifically within the running games piece of it, do you feel like you need to do what you're doing better or look at doing something else?
No, I think you probably would evaluate everything, as we have. But I think what it comes down to is we got to do it better. Again, you take the first 2 weeks of the football season, you saw a lot of consistency, you saw growth. And, I think what your disappointment is that didn't translate into the third game of the season. And so, again, I think it's finding that consistency fundamentally and continue to work ourselves forward. But I think you're going to look at all those things, quite honestly, because, man, we know our recipe for success is you have to have the ability to run the football to have success.
Hey, Coach. Earlier, Coach Haas talked about Rocco getting more pressure on defenses as opposed to being behind the eight ball. What kind of goes into that adjustment and helping him get more pressure?
Yeah, I think first of all you got to remember we're just trying to figure out, as I said, who are we? I think the thing that's been really positive for Rocco is we have found out a lot more about Rocco Beck in the last 3 weeks than we could have known going into the football season. And if you look at our football team, same thing at tailback, same thing at wide receiver, same thing at tight end, same thing at center and left tackle. And so, I think as a whole right now, there's a lot of youth on that side of the football. There's a lot of guys that haven't played. And I think part of our identity is creating an identity, but you first got to know who are you creating an identity with, and then how do you continue to put those players in the best position to, different than what Coach said, man, put them in the best position to have an impact on the football game. So, we continue to learn a lot about ourselves. I know that's kind of part of this team's story right now, but the positive is I think you're seeing some guys emerge and how we can use those guys best to be able to attack defenses or put ourselves in the best position to score points. That's coaching, and that's our responsibility. But I think the exciting part of it is you are seeing players starting to emerge, and that part is positive.
You talked about after the game maybe a little bit of lack of execution offensive line-wise, but when you dug into the film, what did you see on the offense side of the ball where, hey, maybe there's opportunities to tweak the playbook or maybe move some personnel? I mean, obviously you want to be creative as possible.
Yeah, and I don't feel like it's a lack of creativity. I feel like it's a lack, really it was a lack of execution. And I think if you even go back to the first game and the second game, there are some positives, and yet there are things that are hair off. And again, that I'm not saying this to be deflective. I'm saying this to be honest. There's a lot of guys playing for the first time in some of those critical spots. And, I wish that wasn't the case. I know Randy asked that question at the beginning of the season, man, why are you? We are what we are. And the fact of the matter of we believe in our young men. I have got great faith in them. We got great coaches. And, I think part of it is, man, you're not going to panic. You got to do, our job is to do a great job of, man, let's dissect exactly fundamentally where we need to get better. If we do need to create some different things in our scheme to put our kids in a best position to be successful, we'll do it. But I think we've always tried to do a great job of that here. And I think we'll continue to really work to do a great job of that.
Matt, is there any additional context you can offer regarding the interaction with the fan on Saturday and your reaction to what happened there, I guess?
No. I mean, I think emotion got the best of me, and at the end of the day, I'm not perfect, so, got to have a better response from my end.
How's the team's health coming out of last Saturday as far as, like, the bug goes? Is that something that lingers this week with that? And then talk a little bit about Gary. We're going to see him this week.
Yeah, unfortunate situation. Nothing anybody can control. It's kind of nature of the beast, and unfortunately, you're in a plane, and next thing you know, it's kind of running through you a little bit. But I think we're hopefully finally over that. We had a couple guys out today still, but my hope is by the time we get to tomorrow, we're fully healthy and fully back. The Gary situation is frustrating on all accounts. Obviously the most frustrated is Gary. There's no kid in America that has strained more for this program to be a great player and have a great senior year than what Gary has. And to have one of your kingpins not being able to be on the field, my heart hurts for Gary. So I feel like he's continuing to progress forward. It's not something that any of us can expedite speed-wise. Nobody's lived in our training room more to be back on the field than he has. So we certainly hope he'll be back out there. Again, he's moving around, he's out at practice, but also you got to look out for the betterment of him. He plays a violent position, and unless he's full strength, it's really hard to put him on the football field. No, I don't know where that narrative, came from. I think it's been I think it was a bug, and I think it's been 24-hour flu that's kind of run through it. Started on Thursday here, and then by the next point, you got 4 or 5 guys that are feeling the effects of it. So, yeah, not food poisoning though.
Looking ahead to Oklahoma State, they rotate pretty equally between 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs. What do you see particularly from their 3 quarterbacks, and how do you kind of game plan for an offense like that?
Well, I think the one thing about Coach Gundy's offense is, he has certainly had a pretty consistent theme of what he's tried to do. They've got great wide receivers. They've always had really great tailbacks, and really all 3 of the quarterbacks have got experience. And so, I think you're more prepping for the scheme and the who is running the scheme than you are so much the certain personnel. But, they've got really great wide receivers. They've got guys that we have played here for a long time that are really talented. The tailbacks are really talented, and, it'll be a really great challenge for us on defense.
Tyler Perkins, you look at what he's been able to do, especially kind of flipping the field when the offense is finding its footing. Can you just talk about what you've seen in his improvement from last year into this year?
Yeah, I feel like Perk is one of those guys for us when you just talk about having great talent, but the work ethic and commitment that he's put into his craft to be able to perform the way he's playing on Saturdays. Tyler is one of those guys who's just got an elite work ethic, and fundamentally who he is, what he's about, and you saw it last year as a freshman to do what he did for us was really special. And he put on about 15, 16 pounds this offseason. Physically you see his confidence just continue to grow, and I think he's got a chance to be really, really special. He's been huge for our football team for sure in the early part of the season.
When you guys were evaluating and recruiting Higgins, what did you see, and how is that translating here through 3 games?
Yeah, I think you saw this big target, a guy that really can go and high point the football, a guy that certainly has way better speed than maybe even what we thought in the recruiting process. And you saw a guy that really kind of reminds you a little bit of Akeem in some way, shape, and form. And, I'm really excited about what he's got the ability to continue to grow into, and I think he would tell you there's been some great plays. And, man, I think even for him, the consistency of how great he can be is going to be really exciting to watch that just continue to grow and develop. But, man, you see a guy that loves football. Man, he really competes at it, wants to be great. Nobody was more dejected on Saturday after the football game than Jaden was. And I think, to me, it tells you what kind of teammate he is too, because there's some great plays he makes in the football game. But, that guy, owning it and feeling terrible, I mean, you slipped, and it's part of football. But, man, I thought he came back, made some huge plays, but he's got great character. We're really excited about what he can do for us.
When you look at guys like X or Petway before him, where you guys have recruited transfers or junior college guys,
Yeah.
is there anything different about evaluating the older wide receivers and projecting them out versus high school guys?
Yeah, I think the one positive sometimes when you're looking at evaluating those guys is you pretty much know what they've got the ability at their full potential to be. And the other piece of it, and I think when I talked about Pet and I talked about X, you always talked about their character, how they came in here and went to work, and that was in the recruiting process with Jaden, probably the thing I appreciated the most. You could tell he wanted to be great. And, man, January, February, March, it's late at night, and that guy's the guy that's in here still working at his craft. And that's a little bit where experience and understanding what it takes to be successful and not just relying on God-given ability, those are some of the things that really stuck out to me. And, you've seen that in its forthright really since the time he's been here. So we've been really fortunate to get boosts from those guys that we've been able to get like that, because I think their maturity and work ethic has resonated within the group.
Coach, when did you know Ben Nickel could be an integral part of your defense on the field, and obviously a captain and everything on top of it, but leading the team this weekend in tackles?
Man, I don't know. I know we get a lot of things get masked because of, we didn't win the football game, but one of the, Tyler Perkins you hit on, and you talk about Ben Nickel. I mean, what that kid is doing for our football team. The first kickoff of the game, I mean, he's a whisker away on the punt block. Man, he's starting on 3 or 4 special teams units, and I think played 50-some snaps for us on defense. And, I think played almost 90% grade out in terms of what he did on defense for us. So, it's so great for those things to happen, because when young players see how that kid practices, how he goes to the weight room, how he goes about his process, what he stands for, how he studies the game, and then to get the results that he's getting, and no different than when you talk about Tyler Perkins and the time, the effort, the energy, that's what makes at least our players really special. It's, man, can you reach your full potential of you, the human? And when you do that, our team is better. And Ben is, man, he's a shining light of it. And I mean, for that guy to get voted captain on our football team, I think it tells you enough about this football team too, is they see his work ethic, and obviously we're getting to see the results of his work ethic right now.
Coach, you've talked a lot about the consistency of different position groups today, but aside from the consistency of the offensive line in the run game, where can they improve the most as you have evaluated them over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I just think it's game rep, and you go against one defense all spring and all fall camp, and obviously you try to create those different situations, but that they see different defenses, but the reality of making in-game adjustments, playing together, and the opportunity to grow through a football game, I think is critical. And obviously somebody's going to have to take the leadership role in there. Jared Hufford's played good football in the first 3 weeks, probably been the most consistent lineman for us, and we're going to have to match his consistency across the board, and then Jared's going to have to do a great job leading the group.
How much did not having Jalen available because of the illness last week kind of hamstring a lot of things you want to do offensively? Because even when he's not catching the ball, he's commanding a lot of attention and making the defense play different.
Yeah, and this, Rob, like, it's part of football. You're going to lose a guy, and man, for Jalen, it's the flu, and it's one of those situations. But I think great teams have the ability to respond, and you can easily sit here and we can make a lot of excuses, but the reality of it is that's where we have to grow, and that's part of being young and stepping up when the next guy goes down. Man, you got to step up, and we had some guys. Dimitri came in, returned some punts. Some of those other guys, boy, I thought Daniel Jackson played the best game of his career Saturday. Got some great opportunities and made some big plays for us. So it was great to see. Aiden Bitter keeps playing good football for us and made a couple big plays. So there were some guys that certainly did step up, and that part of it is rewarding and exciting. But you never want to lose a good football player, and especially a veteran football player that's been through the good and the bad. And that obviously that didn't help our football team Saturday. He'll play Saturday. Yep, he was full go today. Yep.
As you evaluate the kicking situation, I think you're around 50%, 1 or 2 misses Saturday. Could have gone either way. Is that something that you're evaluating this week in practice?
No, I'm not. You're evaluating the growth and progress. I think, I know I said this at the beginning, and, boy, we've got great faith in Jason. He's going to continue to do a great job. Again, hair off. If that's what it was, it's a hair off. It's a hair off, and I think that's probably the mentality of like who we were Saturday. We were hair off on some coming out situations defensively, hair off on offense, hair off on special teams. And man, can we have enough courage to go back, work at our craft, and make sure we're putting ourselves in the best position to have success. So Chase will do a great job. He's got maturity, and he cares a great deal, and was really good today in practice. So I expect him to come back strong. All right, guys. Thank you, guys. Thanks.